Hi, everyone, and welcome to this month's session on ransomware, protecting your organization from an increasing threat. We are glad you're here, and we're going to jump right in. I am Ron Tosto. I'm a retired Navy veteran, QSA, Swift assessor, and a registered practitioner. And I've been in the cybersecurity industry for more than 10 years in data protection, more years than I actually want to admit. And with me today is Renee. She's a retired police officer from South Africa. She's also a registered practitioner, a Swift assessor, and has certifications for ISO 27001 and is a CISSP. And of course, she is a subject matter expert here at Servadus for CMMC version 2. Before we get into the topic, just a couple housekeeping items. Participants, your mics and cameras are turned off. You can use the Q&A feature at the top row, but we just really encourage you to grab a cup of coffee to enjoy the next 20 minutes or so, and then recommend that you turn on your Do Not Disturb for your devices. And with that, I'm going to turn mine off because I forgot. Um, And then going right into what our agenda is for this week, we're going to talk about what is the ransomware, methods of attack, and why to prepare. And then really the longest piece is we're going to go over 9 domains. It's really got 18 controls, and what we will cover today. So moving right into the first topic is what is ransomware? So ransomware really is about a method of attack, um, in that it really gets into doing in a couple of different methods of ensuring that you can't access your computer or your network systems or your data. And it really just is a way to ensure that you don't have access. But really, what's more important around the ransomware is why it is um, what's the end result for attackers. And of course, because it's got the word ransom, it should be a giveaway. The bottom line, as we've known for a long time for many hackers, is it's financially motivated. There's nothing more, to it than the financial motivation. And this one is just really specifically to get you to pay the ransom. Now, we should never be confused that if you say, hey, I'm not going to pay the ransom, that if they've got your data, they're just going to go to method 2 and sell it anyway. And no matter which way you do it, if you pay your ransom, there's, of course, many debates on should you pay your ransom, should you not pay the ransom, do you have cyber insurance, will they help pay the ransom? And so we're not gonna get into the debate on if you should pay or if you shouldn't pay. That's only for the organizations. I will say it's one of those. It's some of the debate is if you pay, then it just encourages more ransomware. But no matter which way you go, you will not recover your data. Once data is taken outside the organization, it never comes back into the organization. You may have access to it, but it doesn't mean you have exclusive access to it. And that's important to remember. Now, the ransomware itself is, because it has got the where, it is some kind of malware, virus, however you would like to put it, right? But then there is really how does the ransomware get delivered? And here's some interesting statistics around the exploitable vulnerabilities, 48%. We even know that most of the vulnerabilities that are exploited are over a year old, generally in the range of 4 to 5 years old. Brute force with just credentials, social engineering. I think, and recently in 2023, right, is the couple of the casinos were broken into. And so specifically MGM, there was a phone call made, social engineering, and really a person with privileged access their account credentials were given out, um, and the social engineering attackers had everything they needed inside of 10 minutes, and so it was done. And then that's how MGM was offline for at least 4 full days with no access to their systems, and it took them, well, I'm sure it took them weeks to fully recover. Even after a week, they were still doing some manually based systems. And so previously compromised credentials, which means that if you are one of those people, and a lot of people use the same passwords, while it's recommended you use password generators, use different passwords. For those that still use the same password for multiple sites, if something is compromised and then they can get to the sites that you haven't changed the passwords, then they get through. And then, of course, abuse of trust, which is another way of saying it's really about, the internal threat, or the internal threat, which, is, left the company and is disgruntled and comes back. And so it can be important. So why is it important? And so here's just a couple of pieces, um, for small business. Small business is only just a little over 50% in surveys have, businesses thought they were too small for attacks. And really, in understanding that, if we understand in this day of age of automation, we even understand AI. The bots that do the initial attacks has no idea what organization you are, what you do in the background, and if you're doing some monitoring of what's coming in, and organizations that are trying to access your small business, I think this would be a lot higher number. But as it is, however, despite that, 43% of um, cyber attacks are targeted to small business. And probably here is the biggest reason why. If a small business is breached, only 60% of them go out of business, which is, pretty amazing. And so while we can say things like, hey, loss of revenue, loss of brand reputation, if you're a small business, that means 6 out of 10 businesses that end up being attacked will no longer exist in 6 months, because they just can't recover from the situation, either financially or from a reputation. And so that should probably be the biggest one if you're a small business, to take action today on your ransomware. And that's what we hope to, just show some of the fundamentals. But this is the, why, is to stay in the business. Now let's go into some of the basic ransomware readiness pieces. Again, this is, there are really 10 domains. We're only covering 9 of them today, with some basic controls. And so look at this as a maturity model. We'll really cover the basics today, but there's an intermediate and advanced levels that we hope to cover in future webinars and podcasts. And so let's talk about the first, really the domain. It's two areas on having a robust backup. So one, you got to make sure that you have a backup. And then the second piece on this, and while we use the word robust backup, is that organizations that are doing the attack for ransomware, they figured out quickly that, hey, if organization is doing a backup, they can quickly just do a restoration and call it good. And so robust means that you have to have some systems that are either physically or logically offline. Because what happens is the attackers get in. Once they get the systems, they encrypt the data, and then they implement a backup of the data that's encrypted using their key. So when you do a restore, you only restore encrypted information that you still don't have access to having a system that's offline allows you to bring it online and do a restore of data that hasn't been seen or accessed by ransomware attackers. And then, of course, just generally, as with all backups, um, you need to make sure it works. And if it, doesn't work, there is often misconfigurations with backups that, um, is it a full backup? Is it an incremental backup? And you really get into those pieces where the backups aren't giving you the information you expected, or the backups are full and they're not rotated out like they should. So really the second step in this, having a robust backup is also making sure that from time to time that they really work and do what they're really supposed to do. And so this is backups to controls, pretty easy. Web browser management and DNS. And so this is much easier than people expect. I can't tell you how often I get in a conference and someone says, "Oh, let me share your screen," and they bring up Chrome browser, and they have one of two things that's up over in their upper right corner, and they've got this little over that says update, and they have one little red one that just says error. And so this really is an indication that sometimes that even in our day-to-day business, those that are using Chrome, and I don't mean to pick on the Chrome browser, but it's the one that's most relevant when they have issues and need updates. And so they put it right in easy access, easy to do, but people don't take the time to push the button. And so having automatic backups updates is crucial. I would say from when we're recording this today, Chrome actually had a 0-day attack, I don't know, 5 weeks ago, I think. And so it was kind of critical that you do updates. So if you're not going to be the one that pushes the button, then I recommend, you go into whichever browser you have and enable automatic backups. And then, repudiation service, sometimes it's called a reverse DNS. So if you're not familiar with the domain naming services for, which is what DNS is, you can go in both directions. You can start with the internet IP address and look up the DNS, the domain name. Sometimes we call it the URL, what goes with it. And you can start with the URL and work the other direction and what is the IP. And so regardless if you look it up from name to number or IP number or IP address to name, those should match. And so this is just a repudiation of how do you make sure that you're not being subject to a man in the middle attack, or just completely rediverted to another IP address that is not really the reputable service. And then of course the last piece in this is a secure DNS. Most DNS is pretty common. It's usually been on port 43, or sorry, port 53 for many, many years. But using a secure DNS really ensures, just like protecting your data that's on the page itself, the secure DNS ensure that it protects that information. And so what you're getting cannot be manipulated from the DNS server to your browser. And so this ensures that, again, there's nothing that's in the middle that's intercepting or giving you false information to send you to a website that's not really the the site you want to be on. And so this is a great way to just, because the web browser is between the web browser and the email, right? These are the two main areas where information comes into your organization that you don't know if the information is trustworthy. You don't know if there's any kind of malware or ransomware built into it, or if there's linked to places that will encourage you to download those kind of ransomwares. So this is where you're just really encouraged to do the basics, to make sure that you know there is no one that's intercepting the information on a non-secure set of, protocols moving forward.
So, under phishing prevention and awareness, one of the controls is tabletop exercises that include phishing response scenarios, and these should be conducted annually. Tabletop exercises are important as they help validate training. A tabletop exercise will prove the preparedness of your team. It identifies what your company needs to work on. A good tabletop exercise will help the response team understand the plan and teaches them to coordinate decision making in critical situations. Ultimately, a tabletop exercise should be conducted every time a significant change has happened in the ransomware response plan. But if no changes were made, it should take place once a year. Tabletop exercises usually involve supervisors, team leaders, and managers. Users should be trained to recognize cyber threats like phishing. Training employees to recognize phishing can help guard your company against cyber threats. Employees that have the skills and knowledge to recognize red flags can stop a phishing attack that could potentially damage your company and severely impact service delivery. Phishing training should be practical and realistic. Good training is beneficial for employees at all levels and should be part of the onboarding process of new employees. Training should happen every 4 to 6 months. A study by Usenix found that 6 months after training, employees already had a hard time recognizing phishing emails. Phishing training typically includes the following topics: a typical phishing attack pattern, commonly used techniques by cybercriminals, typical characteristics of phishing messages, the intent of attackers and typical outcomes of successful events, what not to do if a recipient suspects an email may be part of a phishing campaign, and how to properly report phishing campaigns to both the IT team and authorities. The third control in this domain is email should be filtered to protect against malicious content. According to a spam and phishing report by Kaspersky, more than 48% of all emails sent in 2022 were spam. Email filtering is a powerful method in preventing email attacks. This allows employees to focus on their jobs rather than sifting through a messy inbox. Email filtering does not just focus on inbound emails, but also filters outgoing emails, thus preventing spam from leaving the email server's IP address. Email filtering can be on-prem, in the cloud, or by using a hybrid approach. Many email providers will supply email filtering service, but it's for the individual to customize it. Endpoint email filters can be installed company-wide in combination with a server that filters suspicious emails and attachments. Filtering can be provided by your managed service provider and be tailored especially for your organization. Free email filters are available and are a cost-effective option for small companies. Examples of email filtering services are Barracuda, Proofpoint, and Titan HQ. Keeping hardware and software updated will add a layer of defense against unwanted emails.
Yeah, and
Up
it's
to you.
actually it's actually amazing how many organizations don't do the basic on their email filtering, and that just
Yeah, great.
thanks Renee. So next we're going to talk about the network perimeter monitoring, and this is really for understanding what kind of organizations and what kind of traffic is really attempting to access your organization and is outside the firewall, and it's publicly facing. I know that as we have implemented new network monitoring tools, even here at Servadus, we get a number of attempts for accessing the VPN each day, probably in the tune of 10 or 20 an hour throughout the day. And so really understanding what's going on outside of your firewall and in that monitoring service helps you develop a strategy plan on how to prevent unauthorized access to your on-prem environment. And then, of course, this really leads into access management. organizations having hardware and software assets that, have been inventoried. You really have to understand you can't protect what you don't know. And so this is really where the asset management comes in, is knowing what systems you have. And then if a system shows up on your network, understanding that it is not supposed to be on your network, and why is that? And is it because um, someone that has access to the network that's inside, a facility is using systems they're not supposed to be, and using unsupported hardware and software. And then of course, really the third piece out of having your access management, is those systems that are authorized, that they have configuration systems, and this is known as hardening, um, so that you understand what software is being authorized to use on the hardware that's within your environment. And this um, makes sure that your assets are authorized and configured for use within your environment.
Patch management is the process of receiving, testing, and installing patches on existing applications and software. Typically, in a large organization, this is done by the IT department. In small companies, this task can be taken over by the managed service provider. Failure to keep the system updated can allow bad actors to infiltrate the system and hold it ransom. To know what needs to be patched, a company needs to have a comprehensive asset register for both software and hardware, like Ron said. Once you know this, you must keep up to date on newly released patches. It's vital that a patch is tested first before deployment across the company's network, because patches can cause errors and downtime. Automated patching helps relieve the burden of manual patching, and it decreases the time between patch release and deployment. Of course, the quicker a patch can be applied, the less chance there is for exploitation. CISA VCA is a patch automation tool that can help, or for a more hands-on approach, you can head over to Qualys, that puts out a list of vulnerabilities weekly. Many regulations have a specified time frame for patching that you will need to adhere to if you want to be compliant. The NIST SP 800-40 Revision 4 is a great free guide on how to implement patch management in both small and large companies. It is industry standard that critical vulnerabilities be patched within 15 days and high vulnerabilities be patched within 30 days. NIST goes even further by specifying that the higher the asset importance, the quicker patches should be applied. More about this can be found in the intermediate and advanced parts of the ransomware readiness.
Yeah, and I just saw something this past week where it said a highly efficient organization will patch critical vulnerabilities within 3 days, and highs within 7. So uh, if you're looking for a target, then that would be the place to be. Next is user and access management. And really two controls here, right, is are you using strong and unique passwords throughout the entire organization? Um, and while we will acknowledge that this is, we're facing, or really addressing basic controls, um, the basic controls don't get into multi-factor authentication or password and some of the other ones. And so understanding those are more at the intermediate level. And then, of course, using a principle of least privilege. And a lot of smaller organizations have a challenge with this particular area, as there is overlap in what roles individuals are performing within an organization. And so we just really encourage that as you assign people, that they still get roles added and removed for what accesses they need. And so as the organization grows and gets to divide those responsibilities out, those roles that were overlapped for individual people can really be removed and added to another role. And so those are the two of strong and unique passwords, and then having the least um, privileged access concept.
There should be a list of known bad software called a block list, and the software on that list should actually be blocked. Block listing and allow listing are security controls that either allow or block access. Allow list only allows pre-approved applications and processes to run and allows only pre-identified files to be accessed by those applications. Think of it as a doorman at a VIP party. You arrive at the door, and if your name is on the invitation only list, you can enter. That is an allow list. A block list is when you arrive at the door, give your name to enter to the VIP party, and the doorman checks to see if you are the naughty list, allowing everybody else to enter, even if they don't have an invitation. Allow lists confirm who and which devices can access a service or application and are typically more restrictive. Entities not on the list are not given access. In blocklisting, everything known to be malicious is not authorized to run on endpoints or servers in a network. Entities not on the block list are allowed access. The biggest challenge in blocklisting is the ever-growing list of threats that need to be added to the list. Using the AV Test Institute website for new listings shows an average of 450,000 listings added daily, but just having a list and updating the list is not enough. Tests should be conducted frequently to make sure that those listings are really blocked. One of the biggest challenges of blocklisting is the potential for false positives, which occurs when legitimate entities are mistakenly blocked because they have characteristics that are similar to known threats on the block list. There are 6 different blocklisting techniques. DNS-based, that involves blocking known malicious domains or Internet Protocol addresses. Reputation-based, which evaluates the reputation of a source before allowing access or flagging it as malicious. Signature-based uses a set of predefined signatures to detect and block malicious traffic on the network. Behavior-based identifies and blocks suspicious activities by monitoring application behavior and employing machine learning algorithms. A SIEM application is a security measure that revolves around collecting, analyzing, and reporting on security and event data. Threat intelligence platforms aggregates threat intelligence data across various sources to identify and block potential threats. Most people consider the term incident response something that follows once you have a security breach. Incident response processes should be well documented and communicated, concrete roles and responsibilities established, and the plan should be reviewed and tested on a regular basis. Just as cyber threats and regulations continue to evolve, incident response processes, tools, and methods must also update and adjust to the evolving industry. NIST Special Publication 800-61 is a guide about incident handling that discusses the complete trajectory from why a plan is needed up to coordinating and sharing information regarding incidents. When developing an incident response plan, understanding what is at risk is the first step. Discovering critical infrastructure and knowing essential services is part of this process. For an incident response plan to be functional, there must be an incident response team. This team of trained professionals takes ownership of the task when an incident happens. A risk assessment is a good starting point in the development of an incident response plan, followed by a business impact analysis, which can assist in determining which activities should be prioritized after a breach occurs. Some advantages of having an incident response plan includes damage limitation, effective communication, and compliance with regulations, as well as lower investigation costs. An incident response plan covers 6 main categories. Preparation stage, covering developing the strategy and documentation, and could possibly be further divided into subcategories. The detection stage includes how to identify the attack, as well as monitoring activities relating to the discovery of attacks. The containment stage involves how to limit damage, isolation, and forensic analysis. The eradication stage includes how the network or devices are to be cleaned, how to resolve issues, and testing the environment before deployment. Recovery stage covers the part where businesses returns to normal. It includes added monitoring for reinfection and remnants of the incident that could possibly have survived. And last, lessons and training, where employees will be taught how to respond to incidents in the future by using the knowledge gained from the incident that has happened. Once the plan has been developed, it should be tested and refined to ensure effectiveness. This can be done using a tabletop exercise that we covered earlier. Once a plan has been adopted, keeping it updated is essential. Teams should receive regular training on using the plan effectively. Incident response plans should not be limited to large companies. Small companies gain a lot by having an incident response plan. Aside from it being included in many regulations, it demonstrates a company's commitment to cybersecurity. If you need assistance regarding your incident response plan, please reach out to us so that we can help you set up a plan.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. And great advice. And then there's for those that are accounting, this is the 10th domain, but we wanted to acknowledge the 10th domain is about risk management. And then the basic approach for preventing ransomware attacks. Risk management is not a part of the basic set, but is really about the advanced set. Now, if you would like to find some more, and Renee did a great job of listing some of the other ones, the NIST 853 it is very popular, and the CISA.gov has a Stop Ransomware page, which has common information that is for both public and government. And they have done a great job of trying to communicate how do we protect um, our infrastructures, both small and large, from ransomware attacks. And with that, Renee, I think we're at the end. For everybody that joined or is listening online, thank you for attending, and hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.